I have one bottle
I think the
left.
last good glass of wine I had was with you at your quasi farewell party.
Really? We went to Apia.
Yeah.
Yes, we had good wine there. That's true.
That was very good wine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, let's kick
Anyway,
off. Welcome to the Plate Up. My name is Heshan,
welcome to the Plate Up. My name is Sebastian.
and we are the F&B Podcast, focusing on the hospitality industry, especially on hotels where we both work in currently. Welcome back to our show. Today, we're probably going to tackle a bit more of a serious topic right now. And that is, I think, right now, it's very obvious there's a lot of people that from front of house and back of house who have been furlonged or have lost their jobs completely. And Sebastian, I think I'll let you kick it off with the service side. If you're a person now that have lost their jobs or on unpaid leave or something like that, what should they be doing?
It's a very real topic.
It's a heavy topic, and
it's a heavy topic.
but I think it's something that we need to tackle.
Well, there's, as always, a million ways to look at this. But I think, first and foremost, you need to be in the right state of mind. That's very important because it affects what you do and how you do it. So the first thing is to understand that this is not our fault. It is completely outside of our control. And sadly, it has very real consequences for a lot of people. And so we have to be positive and try to overcome this as we always do and adapt to change. So you have to have a mindset of, okay, well, this happened, and now what can I do to get up and go on? Obviously, I would say if you have time, especially if you're on unpaid leave, sharpening the knife is always a good thing. I think, F&B people, we are very passionate. So there's always one area that we like to more than another, or that we like to delve into. Like, I don't know, someone would prefer beverages a bit more. Some will like wine, some will like food, some will like the art of the table and service. So there's now with internet, there's pretty much everything available. I think that the best part is to find on YouTube videos, to be honest. Videos about specific topics and just keep learning and keep deepening the knowledge. And in parallel, of course, monitor the situation, monitor what's happening with the regulations in terms of hygiene. And I'm sure you will have a lot to say about this, Heshan. But stay on top of the industry and aware of what's happening, and try to see in which direction it's going to go, because one day restaurants will reopen in one way or another, in one form or another, and people will need to hire a skilled workforce.
But Sebastian, can we do this for 3-4 months straight?
Some people can, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
But any business is under a lot of strain for when you're closed, or where you have very little traffic for so long. So what can you do? It depends. You can also hone your skills by trying to find, I'm not going to say odd jobs, but opportunities for you to make revenue by using your craft. I see a lot of sommeliers. They do online tastings, online workshops, or online presentations about wine and different products, the wines they like. We see a lot of chefs now making recipes at home, a lot of restaurants, a lot of hotels on Instagram posting recipes. So to stay on top of the industry, to stay relevant and to stay present. What do you think?
I have a few concerns. I have a few different thoughts on this. First things first, my biggest fear is when things open up again, I think it's going to be very cutthroat. That's my first fear. And probably the most important thing I will say, and it's very easy to sit behind a microphone and say this, but I think for me, know your worth. That's the first thing I will say.
Yes.
My biggest fear is that people will be undervalued. Like they'll undervalue themselves in the way of how much they're worth. So, whether if you were getting X amount of dollars before, you're happy to take a reduction to get now a different salary just because you want a job. Now, again, it's easy to sit here and say that. But I have a fear that small businesses or businesses will take advantage of this situation, right? And it's twofold. It's both sides. I think if you're a business owner, a restaurant owner, whatever, you're also going to be careful, right? So,
Yes.
If somebody comes in saying, listen, I want $30 an hour, and then another guy comes in and says, listen, I'll work for you for 28, right?
So is that a lot as a reference? Is that a lot? Is that not a lot? $28 to $30
I
an
think
hour?
if you're a small business owner, let's think about from a small business owner's point of view. If you're a small business owner, that's a lot because, let's take it, $2 saving an hour over 8 hours over 5 days. Let's not go 7 because you get 2 days off. That ends up being a lot, especially in our industry. And if you're a freestanding restaurant, okay, let's not take hotels, but let's take freestanding restaurants where, the margins are very small. $2 saving an hour, you'll happily take it. So I'm worried that there might be businesses that exploit this, right? So that's one of my fears. My second fear is that restaurants and small businesses may take, qualifications may not mean the be all and end all. They use, experience always helped, and you could put your experience down in a resume, and that would order. It doesn't. Yes, even if you did ask for a bit more salary, you had the experience to say, well, this is what I'm worth. This is why I'm asking this much, right? I fear now people will just take whatever they can get, right? And this is where I think, if you're all of a sudden you got Michelin star experience, you could easily be undercut from a guy that's happy to do it for less. Right. So that's my first thing.
So that's it's
so
one is
that
taking advantage, and the second one is the dilution of skill requirements.
Exactly. So that then leads into a second knock-on effect. So let's say you are a person that's got tons and tons of experience working in fine dining restaurants, right? And I'm not just saying, if you work in fine dining restaurants, you could be working, in line chef, you could be cafe chef, it doesn't matter, right? My worry is that all of a sudden you take any work as a chef because that's what you know. And all of a sudden now you're working in a job where you're earning half. Or let's say a substantial less than what you used to earn before, and you're doing the same hard amount of hours. So you're doing the same amount of hours. You're still grinding like you did before, right? Let's be honest. Job satisfaction isn't going to be as high as it was before because before you're working in your fine dining restaurant where you were learning, and all of a sudden you may be doing something completely different. Still in the same industry, but mentally, that's not going to be
easy. No, definitely.
Exactly. So that's where I say know your worth, and I know it's going to sound crazy, but I nearly say, and not just nearly say, I say, take a break from the industry, right? Look at other industries. Right now, don't think, oh, I can't stack shelves. I used to stack shelves before I became a chef, right? Don't think, oh, I'm not going to work in a supermarket. I'm not going to work as a laborer. I'm not going to work in construction, right? Right now, it would be better to do something completely different right? Because then if you're doing something completely different, it's learning. You're still learning, right? And as long as you're learning, and whether it's something that you're really 100% passionate or not, as long as you're learning, at least your brain's still in a decent frame of mind, right?
Mm.
If you're doing something that you really dislike, it doesn't matter how much you
It's
try
not
and
good
enjoy
for
it,
anyone.
it's not going to help, right? So you might as well go and do something different. The industry is always going to be there. No one can take your skill away, right? So whether, if you've been a chef for 50 years, okay, 50, let's say 50, right?
That's
Let's,
so.
if you've been a chef for 10, 20 years, working in really high-end places, you're not going to, if you leave the industry, no, you're not going to forget that. You're not
No,
going to
yeah.
forget the skill, right? So, but you know what they say, a change is good as a holiday, right? So I
But
honestly believe
yeah.
do something different if you have to, right? Because don't put yourself in a toxic situation where all of a sudden you're working for some guy that, you're just doing it for the money. And,
Mm.
let's be honest, in our industry, if you're doing it just for the money, you're already
1 foot
not in
out.
it.
Yeah.
Exactly, right? No one
You're,
does our industry just for the money, right?
no.
I mean, you have to have some level of passion to be in this industry. That's where I begin on this.
But so, okay, look outside of the industry and see if there's something. Take a break of the industry. Now, can you also? Do you think it applies also to look at something different within your industry? Like
Definitely.
I know a lot of chefs. Okay, chefs, and service people, F&B people that work their whole life in one, like in hotels. That's what they do. Hotels. They have done since the first day of their career until the last one. It was hotels, different brands, different countries, but always hotels. And you have people who stay within F&B, or as a chef, for example, stays a chef, but finds his fulfillment, his happiness in many different jobs. So they might have worked in a 5-star hotel for a few years and then got a few promotions. Then they opened their own sandwich shop, um, and then opened another restaurant with a partner, and then maybe that didn't work out. So then they went to catering or private yachts or in cooking in the army. I mean, there's so many different um, facets to our industry that you could also, as you said, if you work 20 years in fine dining, why don't you go and work in a smaller place or open? Okay, maybe now is not the best climate to be entrepreneur and to be an entrepreneur and open something, but see something out of your comfort zone and out
100%.
of your habit.
100%. I think, the worst thing about somewhat our industry is we become a bit snobbish into other facets of our industry. I mean, we spoke
True.
about this in the first episode where we said, we always look at takeaway with its own, we look at it from a distance, right?
It's not fine
Because
dining.
that's, yeah. So, you know, this snobbishness or this arrogance that we have to other aspects of the industry, it has to, you need to make peace with that, because how many, I mean, I know from our side, right, and I'll say it just from a chef's side, we used to always have this, and it's not a nice saying, but I remember as a junior chef we used to say it, like we used to say, and apologies to listeners, because obviously when I was a junior chef I had a very different way of thinking to where I'm now. We used to always look at chefs that used to teach as, we used to say, oh, these guys couldn't make it, right? But that that kind of thinking back then, and unfortunately some people never change, they don't mature from that kind of thinking, right? And it has to, because if you go into our industry isn't just about knife to board. There is teaching. I do a lot of teaching now. I teach. I mean, okay, I don't sit in front of a classroom. I spend most of my time teaching my younger chefs. We all do it. So
It's part
those
of
misconceptions we had back then, right? They need to finish. But you can't just say, well, I'm only going to do fine dining, because you're making that box so small.
Yes.
It's going to be such a small box that you fit yourself into, right? And the reality is, cutting an onion in a fine dining restaurant may be different to cutting an onion in a cafe, but you still know how to cut an onion, right?
Yes.
Opening a bottle of wine in, Joel Robuchon's, wherever he is in France, right? And opening a bottle of wine in the cafe down in Bang Na is pretty much the same. It's probably going to be a different quality of wine, right?
Yes.
But you still have the skill. So apply it, but know your value. That's all I say. Know your value. Don't just suddenly say, and any job you take, don't just take it because, this is the best I can get, and don't wait, like I said, jobs will come up, find something to do in between.
Practice your skill.
Practice your skill, right?
Refresh your skill.
Exactly. And I think it's such an important thing right now. To come back to doing recipes online and things like that, right? I mean, we've started a podcast, right?
Yes.
We would have never started this podcast if this didn't really happen. Let's be honest. We were both very, very busy and we didn't have the time for it, right? Now we do. And now we're making conscious effort to find the time to make it going. And now it's up and going. But, do these things, right? Look at, unfortunately, I mean, there's a lot of chefs and a lot of waiters that, because we all kind of think, oh, we can't do videos online. We can't do podcasts. I can't take photos. I can't take great photos of my food to promote.
Yeah.
Learn it. Like you said, it's on YouTube, right? YouTube, you can find things online, how to take good food photography, how to start a podcast like we did, how do you video yourself? Peter McKinnon does all these things, right? Go out there and find the time. If people have time to bake bread, you can find time to learn how to take photos of food, right?
Yes.
Because also building your resume now, right? You have to be a bit more multi-skilled now, I think, to tell you the truth, especially in this world. You need to be a lot more multi-skilled. You can't just be, well, I only know how to do knife to board, right? You need to know, you need to have, let's be honest, you need to have some kind of social media presence, right?
Yeah. And that's actually, it's very good that you mentioned this. And I think we should talk about this in an episode dedicated to this, which is what do we need to know to be efficient at our job? What are the skills that we need to be good chefs and good F&B service people, or good F&B people overall in general? And I think that's something we can discuss, because I believe we will definitely come with our own ideas. But as you said, your soft skills, emotional intelligence, all of this it's not just about, as you said, can I cut up an onion or can I make a great sauce? It's all of the other things around it that make you a better person.
Definitely. Definitely. And it's, whether it be the hotel industry, whether it be in the, standalone restaurant industry, building your skill set, and not locking yourself in. And actually, this is something we see more in Asia, actually, to tell you the truth. I haven't seen it so much. Maybe I'm wrong. You correct me on this, right? And I'm going to talk more from a chef point of view. You find a lot of chefs that are specialists, right? So, you have, and you find it more in Asia. You're a Western chef. You're this guy's a Thai chef. This guy's a Japanese. He works in the Japanese restaurant.
You're a wok chef.
Right? You're a wok chef, right? And okay, there are some things that are completely specialist skills. Like if you're a sushi chef, you're a sushi chef, right? And that's what you focus on, bang, right? When I was doing my trade skills back in Australia, and, we had to be a bit of everything. We had to know how to cook a stir fry. So we had to have basic Asian cooking knowledge. We had to know how to do pastry. So we had to have basic pastry knowledge. And we had to know how to do, of course, everything else, your grill sections and your pan
But
sections and
did you
things like
go
that.
to a hospitality school or did you
I
go
did.
to
I
a
did. I went to a college
culinary?
called William Angliss, which is
Okay.
pretty much, I think, now seen as one of the best in Australia, if not the best in Australia. There, when I was going through them, they only had the one campus in Melbourne, but now they are global. They've got a few in China. They've got,
Yeah,
I think,
good.
one in Singapore. They're in Sri Lanka. They've got an offshoot in Vietnam. So they've expanded. And they're in the other states as well. So they're in the other. So it's not just Melbourne, Victoria. Now they're in Sydney and things like that. That kind of teaching helped me down the track to so I had the confidence, like, I can do pastry, I can do basic pastry. There are a lot of chefs that don't know how to do any basic pastry nowadays, and it's very important to know these things. It's very important to know how to do basic butchery, because that's another skill that's completely gone by the wayside, by the way, because nowadays, I remember even when I was a junior chef, you buy all your meats portion controlled and things like that. So you lose a skill in butchery
Yes,
because everything
because for
comes.
efficiency's sake, and just to explain a bit, in hotels, for efficiency's sake, everything is pre-portioned or pre-measured, let's say. Not always
Pre-measured,
pre-portioned,
yeah.
but
So you're buying a
pre-measured.
whole sirloin. You're not okay. Maybe you don't buy it cut up, but you buy it whole. Actually, in Australia, we used to buy it completely cut up, because if you take the labor out of it, if you take that, it takes, if you take, let's look at the waste. If you take a whole sirloin, by the time you trim it back, you clean it up, the waste that goes out,
It costs you more
it costs you more, right?
than
Because
just
you put
buying
the
it
labor,
already
and
pre-portioned.
the problem is, and that it costs you more because people don't know what to do with the leftovers.
Yes,
Right.
they just
So
usually throw them
forget the
away.
fact that you've now burned some labor into it. You've taken 15 minutes to clean it up, and okay, let's say, clean 15, 20 minutes to clean it up and trim it down and then portion it. Now you got this trim. So forget the labor that's gone into it. Now you got this trim. What do you do with it? A lot of chefs don't know what to
So,
do with
what
it,
would be
because
the yield of a?
it's hard to say. It's hard to say.
But
It's all
there's,
different.
I remember there's a guy who wrote a book. I need to find this again. There's a guy who wrote a book with basically the yield of everything that you could find in a professional kitchen. It's called the Great Book
Okay.
of Yield, I think.
The
I need to find
great
it.
book.
Something like this. And the guy has pretty much yielded everything. So the yield is the percentage of produce you have left after you've cleaned and trimmed it.
Okay. Okay.
Just to
I
explain
mean,
to
you
our
would
listeners.
generally lose about, if you take everything, like, I don't know, I'd nearly say 10%, 15, 20%, that you might be
Lose.
left with about 80%. When you take out sinew, it like, again, depends on different cuts, you know, different cuts, different types of beef. Obviously, if it's a wagyu, it's a bit different. If it's a low grade, you're going to have a lot more sinew. You may have a high fat content. But then, like, all these things go into sausages and burgers in butcheries, right? So they love it. You pay more for them to keep the trim. They take the trim and they turn it into something else.
Yes.
So, so they're making a bit of money on it
And
anyway.
so, I mean, again, we're going deeper in this, but I like that topic because it branches out to so many things. Like,
Yeah.
why don't we do it in hotels? Why is it not an evidence? I mean, as much as possible, you try to organize your kitchen to have a menu that doesn't require you too much mise en place, too much prep, and that especially in a hotel, you want as little ingredient as possible to be able to use them in as many dishes as possible, so that you don't have too much stock and you don't waste too much.
Well, I've got a bit of a
But I was
controversial view on that, Sebastian. I think the reason for it is because we want, in some countries, right? If you want a good steak in Mexico, how much are you paying?
Like the cheapest here, because
No.
it's big portions.
Let's forget cheapest. Let's go with
Ah, man, you can pay. I
if
mean,
you
they
went
have.
out for a steak, right? Let's say you're going out for a steak. How much are you expecting to pay?
I would pay at least 1,000 pesos, which is it's $50 at
50
least.
bucks.
At least 50
So
euros.
Bangkok, what are we paying? About
Oh man, paying more.
yeah.
If you go out to a restaurant and
Mind
you
you,
eat in a
you
restaurant,
guys you have a beef industry over there, so
yeah,
you're
I mean,
paying about 80, 90 bucks here,
yeah, 80, 90
right?
bucks easily in Bangkok.
In Australia, generally you're paying $35, $40
Mm,
Australian dollars,
mm,
right? Now, how is anyone going to how are you going to compete with that?
yeah.
The countries. This is where I come back to, and it's a controversial topic, and maybe people will agree and people will disagree on this, but restaurants have to jack up their prices. They do. Yeah, it's just the reality. You cannot sell good quality, expensive ingredients, right,
Mm,
at cheap prices, and the way you're going to absorb that cheap price is by the labor that executes it, and
yes.
not the actual core ingredient.
Mm,
That's where the problem is. In Thailand, it's a bit different because labor is quite cheap, and
comparatively, yes.
comparatively, right? And you're importing all the ingredient in, so
Yes.
your ingredient cost is quite high.
Yeah.
But people understand if you want a steak, you're not going to find a steak for cheap.
No.
You know,
Well, it's important.
a decent steak anyway, right?
Yeah. Because it's all
And
important.
it could be anything. It could be anything, um, and the problem back home is it's completely the opposite. And I'm going, when I say home, I say Australia. Like, you cannot absorb the cost through the labor. You can't just say, well, we don't want to increase our price because, and this can't be just one place. It has to be across the board. People have to, the restaurant industry has to get together and say, you know what, from now on, we can't, we have to put the prices up because the consumer isn't ready to pay for it either. The consumer wants to pay as less as possible, naturally,
Mm.
for the best quality product. But the reality is we're not talking about a Ferrari versus a Ford Mondeo, right?
Mm.
Yes, they both do the exact same thing, right? At completely different qualities, where you're paying completely different pricings, and one's a luxury item and one's not. We're not talking about luxury goods here. We're talking about the people need to decide. Consumer needs to be aware that when you're buying a steak, and this whole 30%, 32% food cost and beverage costs, right? It's a bit of nonsense. It's just numbers, right? Obviously we're not there to rip off the customer, but we're not ripping off the customer, but instead we're taking out of the team's pocket.
Okay.
That's
So yeah,
that's my passionate rant on this.
Mm. Well, raise the price so you can raise the salaries also of everyone involved.
Well, of course, and but that's across the board. They need to kind of and you know what the problem is. You know what we do raise our prices on? Silly things, club sandwiches, Caesar salads.
And you would see the price of certain, some of these classics in certain hotels, and you're thinking, my God, how, why, why first of all, and then how, but if it's still there, it means people buy it.
Who is eating a club sandwich? That's
It's 35
when you're
bucks.
not in a hotel.
I don't know. Good question. I don't. I know.
I
think about it and I'm tired already. You know how many steps are involved in making a club sandwich? Well, yes.
There is a lot. And you know why I dislike club sandwiches? And we're going to get off sidetrack here, but this is a great story. When I was a first year apprentice, and second year apprentice, right, I worked at this place called Hilton Melbourne Airport. It's not the Hilton Melbourne Airport now. It's Pullman at the Park Royal at the airport is called now. But I was a young larder chef, so I worked in the cold section. And the cold section meant you have to look after the salads, the sandwiches, the entrees, and the desserts.
Okay.
And being an airport hotel, we used to get hit for these club sandwiches. And I remember, so when you get when we didn't have a toaster, so what you had was a salamander grill. So when a club sandwich order come in, the guy in the cold section would have to take 3 pieces of bread, put it on the salamander, right? And then while that's happening, he'd get his, lettuce, tomato. We used a bit of smoked turkey over there. So, lettuce, tomato, smoked turkey together. And, he'd get that together and cheese. Actually, we used to put cheese in there as well back then, right? Now, while that was happening, the guy on the grill section, he would cook also a hot chicken breast. So we used to put chicken breast and smoked turkey. Hot chicken breast. He'd fry an egg and he would grill the bacon, right? And those little pizza trays? These are so what we call by pizza trays. These are little metallic trays, which are designed to be, you make mini pizzas in, but hotels love to use them as trays to put anything on, right?
Yes.
Because you can put it in the oven, you can cook your steaks on it and then take it out. So he would then stack it all, and he'd put the chicken, the bacon, and the egg on top of this, and then he'd bring it to my section and just put it down.
And just drop it on the pass.
Drop it on the pass.
On the workstation.
Now, when you start getting hit for this, right, forget the fact that you forget that the toast is under the salamander.
Yes.
And because you're trying to do it fast, you pull the salamander grill as close to the element as possible. And if you miss it, all of a sudden,
you have to start it over.
The entire, and we're an open kitchen, the entire restaurant smells A, burnt toast, B, see smoke pouring out of the cold section, and it's all staring at this one guy over there who's running around manic, right? But on top of this, I've got this guy on the grill section. I won't say his name, but this guy would just bring another tray and then another tray. And at one point, I had like 15 trays stacked up of bacon, eggs, and and chicken, right?
The chicken breast.
And I mean, that was, again, PTSD, right? When I see a club sandwich, it always triggers this memory of this nightmare club sandwich experience I had, right?
Now,
and it only takes one service. It takes one service.
True.
And this comes back to what
traumatize you forever.
Exactly. Comes back to what we were talking about the other day about, all these heroes, the nurses and doctors, all out there, going through these horrible situations. And if I had to come back to these busy services,
I would think about it.
I would think about it.
I would consider my options. I think.
I tell you what, it's just club sandwiches. But I mean, I know we got off track there, but
that's okay. Now, staying on the club sandwiches, when we go to other hotels and other restaurants, we are the worst because we always look at every single possible detail and we criticize everything. So I heard a long time ago somewhere, someone said to me that an old school GM he knew, whenever he would go to another hotel, he would always order a few classics to kind of test the quality of the property or the establishment where he was. And those 3 classics were the club sandwich, fries, because fries, he wanted to see if the oil was clean. And that would give indication on the cleanliness and the hygiene of the kitchen. And at the bar, an Irish coffee.
Really?
Because the Irish coffee is an item that is in every, someone one day wrote a commandment and said in every 5-star hotel on your bar menu, you need to have an Irish whiskey. You can't not have it. Okay. And this drink, no one orders it. Like in my career, I think I've made 2. And one of them was for myself. The other one was probably for a customer who asked for one. And I had to look up the recipe. And that's what happens, is that because it's a drink, It's not super complicated, and we can give the recipe either in the description or we can talk about it in another episode. But it's just one of these old school classics, and people, when you ask a bartender, why don't you make me an Irish coffee? It will take 15 minutes for sure, because at the first 7 minutes he's on Wikipedia trying to find out the recipe, and then for another 4 minutes he's running around trying to find cream and Irish whiskey, probably because he doesn't have it behind his bar, and and then the last 3 minutes is him actually making it, and maybe he makes two. The first one doesn't end up that well, so he makes a second one, and then you get kind of an Irish coffee. Now, okay, mind you, there are establishments and hotels and restaurants who have made the Irish coffee an institution, so they do it properly.
Of course.
But I'm talking about the really the most common 5-star hotel or even luxury hotel brand. They will have Irish coffee in their menu for sure.
Yeah, and but but this GM, what was he trying to gain out of this though?
No, we are, as you said, we are sometimes a bit snobbish, or we all have very high standards and expectations, and also an understanding of what is luxury or what are things that are well done. And we always want to, and it's also reassuring. The classics are classics for a reason, right? Because you always know what you're going to expect. And so for hotels, one of the secrets of luxury, not secrets, but one of the commandments of luxury is consistency. And the classics are a perfect test of consistency. The same with a bartender, a daiquiri or a Collins drink or an old fashioned, or you have slight variations in classic recipes of classic cocktails, but ultimately it's the technique also that's behind the drink, right? There's a certain, can you stir a drink properly, or can you shake a drink properly? That says more than the recipe. And so these classics are a good judge of consistency.
Yeah. I can see the method in the madness. I'm not sure if I'd be judging an entire business based on their club sandwich, and it's near like judging an airline purely on the bread roll they use in economy class. All right,
you don't do that. I do that.
I mean, there are other factors that when you say they're classics for a reason, they're classics that are dying away. Let's be honest. And
I'm not sure I agree with you.
No, you don't.
No, I think I think it's a cycle.
Do you honestly think the club sandwich is going to come back? Yeah, obviously you can see how much I hate the club sandwich.
In 50 years, we will still be eating club sandwiches.
No,
you've heard it here first. Yes.
I can tell you now. You go up to any millennial and ask them, have they eaten a club sandwich? They're going to say no.
And you can't tell me that.
There's too many carbs. You know how little carbs people get into nowadays?
In 10 years, people will have forgotten about gluten-free. There will be no gluten anymore. And in 10 years, one guy is going to look at old school sandwich recipes. He's going to say, "Oh God, the club sandwich, yes!" And they're gonna market it, and it's gonna work again, and people are going to remember it, and it's in their DNA.
The crazy thing is, we may have one just to reminisce.
See?
We'll be sitting.
I might wake up tomorrow.
We'll be sitting in some institution somewhere, old and senile, and then we're like, "Can we have the club?" They'll be like, "Oh, this week's special. They have a club sandwich." And we're like, "Hang on, I haven't had a club sandwich since
25 years."
Exactly.
That's it. Yes.
I agree with you. I don't know. I think we have a differing opinion on that. I think classics are eventually on the way out. I really don't believe that.
Some cocktails.
There are some classics that are never going to go away. Drinks is a different deal, Sebastian. Okay. Drinks, stay in fashion. Let's be honest. I mean, I agree. Okay, it's funny that I kind of mocked this person that used to do this, but be honest, when I think about it, I nearly do the exact same thing, because what do I order every bar I go to as my first drink? The margarita, all right?
Always.
I always order a margarita because
And
I'd
say
like
if you have a terrible margarita, what happens to you?
well, it gives me a very good opinion on what the rest of it's going to be like.
Mm.
Right. So, of course, yes, you start judging on what that business is going to be. But you can't put a margarita and a club sandwich in the same category, because I'm pretty certain that any bar, like if you take a bar in a restaurant that has a margarita on their menu and a club sandwich on the menu, the margarita would be outselling the club sandwich 10 to 1. Even if it is 10 to 1, I'd bring a lot more.
I give you a date for 50 years, and let's look at the numbers. 50 years.
Yeah, I don't know.
Speaking of classics, we so for those who are listening to us, we offline we always discuss about. We always talk. I mean, we talk very often to each other. Heshan is in Bangkok at the moment. He's living there and working there. For those who don't know, and I'm living in Mexico on the west coast. So we have 12 hours between
We have
us,
12 hours.
and we talk and we talk about the episodes, the podcasts, and what we want to talk about, the topics. And funnily enough, many times when I come up with a topic or Heshan comes up with a topic, we find out that it's something we've been thinking about. Like Heshan is the kind of guy that I could call in 4 months, and I haven't spoken to Heshan in 4 months, and I will talk to him about this random thing I have seen on internet. 99.9% of the time, Heshan has seen it as well.
That's
And
pretty close, actually.
So today he mentioned about one of the classics, which is not food or beverages but equipment, copper pots. And I have been playing with the purchase button on Amazon for a while now. But I'm very okay. So copper pots are cooking pots that
Copper
are
pots.
either entirely in copper or with the outside in copper and the inside
Tin.
it's tin.
Mm.
So
Do you know why it's tin?
Tell me. But before you explain more in detail, what I wanted to say is that for me, obviously, whenever I look at a product, and that's a curse of my industry maybe or my department, F&B, I want the best.
Of
I will
course.
go for the best. And for me, the best is Moviel. Moviel is this company in France who's been doing copper pots for years and years and years and years. They're in, I think their factory is in the city called Villedieu-les-Poêles, which, if you translate it literally, it means the God city of pots. The city of gods, Villedieu-les-Poêles, the God city of pots. And it is where they have the last church bell foundry. So that whole city is still very much into the industry of making pots and bells and all kinds of equipment. So Moviel for me is the best, and I've been playing for a long time with Amazon to see if I was going to buy it or not. So it's funny that you came up with that.
Well, first reason, the reason they put tin in the
Inside.
copper pots in the inside is because if you notice, copper can go green,
Yes.
right?
It's a
and they
chemical
go
reaction
green.
with the temperature,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. With acid.
With the acid, okay.
Yeah. So if you put like a bit of vinegar in a pot and just leave it overnight on just straight copper, it will start ripping into the copper itself. So that's why the old school pots and pans, where they didn't really put tin, they just took copper. You see that. And copper pots, they're copper on the obviously they're copper on the outside, they're tin on the inside, so you don't get this chemical reaction. right?
The handle
And
usually is cast iron, right?
cast iron, because cast iron's generally a pretty bad conductor of heat. Well, it's a slow conductor of heat. Yes, it's great to cook on because once it's hot, right?
It's not everywhere. The surface
It's hot.
distribution, the heat distribution is very good on a cast
Exactly,
iron pot.
but as opposed to if it's on a handle, by the time the heat comes up to the handle and works its way down, it's going to take a while. Now, copper pots, like other things like Riddell glasses, right? Now, Riddell glasses, actually, I think maybe 5-10 years ago, I would have said, you know what, a glass is a glass, right? After actually learning that each glass can make a glass of wine taste completely different, like, and in a good way, not in a bad way, right? So if you use the wrong glass for a wrong the wrong glass for a particular type of wine, it tastes different. I'm sure you can agree with me on that.
Let's be honest. When your dishwasher is also full with all of your wine glasses, then a glass is a glass when you need a glass of wine.
That's a very good point, right? Now,
let's be honest. But yes, I would always.
Copper pot, however,
yes.
Other than the fact that you get excellent heat, right? You put it on the stove, bang, it's hot.
So it heats up quickly.
It heats up quickly. Who needs this at home, right? Industry, yes. If you're in a fine dining restaurant where you need instant heat, yes, right? I remember when I was a junior chef, you see Jamie Oliver flogging his line of cookware, and then you see Gordon Ramsay's got his line of cookware and all this stuff, right? I used to remember, I can't remember the place right now to the life of me, but we used to buy these pans for work from this industry supplier, right? These pans used to cost $10, $20. Okay, not 10, probably $20, $30, right? Australian dollars as well.
Yeah, but that's, the Moviel are not cheap, the copper pots.
Of course not, right? No, I don't think so. But I'm talking about these just normal work pans.
Right? Okay, you're talking about the normal ones. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I'm talking about normal pans. These things would last us easily 2-3 years. And now imagine 2-3 years, these things are running every day.
Yeah.
Every day, right? And you pay $20, $30 for it. Then you go and look at the copper pot and you go, the amount of money I spend on this, it's more of a status symbol. It's the Hermes of copper pots, all right, of cookware, right?
I see.
Is it, could you find something that does exactly the same? Yes. A garbage bag, or not a garbage bag, a shopping bag does the same thing an Hermes bag does, right? One of these formed metal pans that come from Amazon or AliExpress does the exact same thing a copper pot does, right? Are you going to
they don't look as good.
Of course not, right? And it doesn't look as good. You hang it on your I want to say rafters, but it's not a rafter. You hang it off your ceiling and it looks excellent. But is it worth them? We're talking, I think sometimes these small pots, they're about $400-$500. Am I right? How much are you looking at these pots for?
I was looking at. Well, actually, you know what? I can check it right now.
While you look it up, while you check that out, what I've noticed is that yes, if you're looking at from an industry point of view and you need instant heat, right? Yes, and you get heat everywhere. So we're not talking about normal fry pans. You get heat from the outside in, and you might have some cold spots. A copper pot just gets hot across the board. So you got instant heat. But that also means you need to know how to control that heat. Not everyone knows how to do it, And other than copper fry pans, who really needs a copper stock pot at home? No one.
Or no one's making a copper jam pot.
I saw a guy flogging terrible, copper fish kettle. And I'm thinking, who is cooking fish in a fish kettle still? Okay, there you may do it once or twice, but you're not doing it all the time,
So I'm looking at a 5-piece set. Okay. Beautiful. Copper, tin inside, cast iron handle. And when I say, okay, disclaimer: 5 pieces is 3 pots, no, 2 pots, 1 pan, and 2 covers. That's the 5 pieces.
Covers, lids. Okay.
2 lids. It's 25,000 pesos, which is around $1,000.
There you go. Right. And, you know, yes, you're going to love cooking in them, right? Because you got this instant heat. But if you can, listen, if you can afford it, go for it. If I had $1,000 to buy cookware,
Copper pot, you would do it, I'm sure.
I wouldn't buy copper pots. I'd probably buy a lot of other things like fry pans and grill pans and things like that. Because for me, I know how to control the heat. I know, whether the pan gets hot in 30 seconds or 1 minute, right? I can still work with it. I know how to do it. Of course, it looks nice. And, if you had your own house, yeah, definitely. But, it is, but I need to say one clear thing. There's a lot of labor that goes into these copper pots. So, they're not expensive.
They're handmade.
Every single one's handmade. You cannot form a copper pot. You can't just put it in a machine and, shape it out. You actually need roughly about 2 people to hand roll a copper pot. You might sometimes see like these little ribs that run down the sides of copper pots. That's because they're hand rolled. And they last forever. You're going to hand them to your kids. Your kids may hand them to their kids.
Well, they say it's and the old pots that they make the best soups, right? And that was probably a copper pot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here
because
in Mexico,
and that's where those things have it. Like if you're making a soup and you're sauteing your onions and your mirepoix and all, that's going to constantly stay hot. Like it's not like, what classic usual pots you put, heavy bottom pans. And that's why you have these heavy bottom pans, because to control the heat, you put your onions in, bang, you're sauteing away. You put your carrots in, all of a sudden the temperature drops in your pan. You put your celery in, it drops your pan a little bit. The temperature drops again on the bottom. Copper doesn't. The heat just comes back instantly, and you're nice and sauteing away. So yes, you save some time, and if you look at it from that point of view, yes. Don't get me wrong. If someone said, "Listen, I'm giving you copper pots," I am not going to say no.
I'll take it.
I'll take it. But
here in Mexico, there's in Michoacan, which is it's a region of Mexico. They have a big copper.
Yeah, actually, I was going to say
industry.
that part of the world does have a lot of copper.
And so they make these big copper pots that are very wide with handles on the sides. It looks a bit like a jam pot, to be honest. And they are used to cook carnitas. Carnitas,
yes.
It's one kind of taco, and it's made with the pork that is chopped. And it has the skin, it has the nose, it has all. Everyone has his own recipe of different pieces of the pork. But the particular thing is that it's cooked in pork fat, which they call manteca here. So these pots, because they get hot very quickly, they have these wooden. The traditional one is wooden. Obviously, some do it with gas. They have a stove with a big opening, and they place the pot there, and they put all the pork fat, the liquid pork fat, to bring it to a boil. And it goes very quickly, and it stays hot for a long, long time. So they can fry big quantities of pork meat until it really falls apart and it becomes almost minced. That's carnitas.
You know what? The next episode, we're going to talk about Mexican food. No, I'm serious. You're going to have to explain to me, because I'm a little bit ignorant and I just think Mexican food is all tacos, all right? And burritos.
I'm learning every day.
And you're going to have to educate us on this, because unfortunately, a lot of people confuse Mexican food and Tex-Mex.
Yes,
I would have been a culprit a while ago. So it'd be great for you to fill us all in on that.
Let's do that. I'll do some research.
Yes.
And I'll come up with some good things to talk about. And if you have questions, let's bring them up as well.
Definitely. Sebastian, by the way, exciting days. We are on iTunes now.
Yes. Wonderful.
We are there. So if you're listening to us on iTunes, welcome. If you got to this far, thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. Please send us your feedback. there is a little link on the bottom where you can actually give us verbal feedback or just send us a message. We are on Instagram, YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify right now. So please let us know. But thank you for joining us once again on the Plate Up.
Thank you to everyone. And we hope you look forward to the next episode.
Yes,
we certainly do.
See you next week.
Yep. Be safe, be strong.
Be safe. Have a good one.
Have a good one. Thanks for the memories.